In our journey through life, we often encounter a fundamental tension between what we perceive as our higher self and our lower self. This dichotomy suggests that we have two distinct aspects of our being, each with its own characteristics and desires. The higher self is often associated with spiritual aspirations, enlightenment, and a sense of purpose that transcends the mundane concerns of daily existence. Conversely, the lower self is typically linked to the ego, personal desires, and the practicalities of survival. This division seems straightforward and intuitive. We are encouraged to cultivate the higher self while subduing the lower self. This conceptual framework provides a guide for personal development and ethical behavior. We begin to see that this dualistic perspective may be more complex and problematic than it initially appears. The struggle between these two selves can lead to inner conflict and confusion, complicating our efforts to live a purposeful and intentional life. The higher self is often described as the spiritual aspect of our being. It is associated with qualities such as wisdom, compassion, and a sense of connection to something greater than ourselves. This aspect is seen as our true essence, representing our highest potential and our ultimate goal in life. The higher self embodies the values of altruism, integrity, and transcendence. It guides us towards a life of meaning and fulfillment, encouraging us to rise above the limitations of the ego and the immediate gratification of personal desires. In many spiritual and philosophical traditions, the higher self is regarded as the source of our most profound insights and the key to understanding our purpose in life. It is often depicted as a guiding light that illuminates our path and helps us navigate the complexities of existence. By aligning with the higher self, we are believed to be able to access levels of consciousness and achieve a state of inner peace and harmony. In contrast, the lower self is frequently associated with the ego and the primal aspects of human nature. It represents our personal desires, fears, and survival instincts. The lower self is concerned with immediate gratification, self-preservation, and the pursuit of pleasure. It operates from a place of separation and individuality, often leading us to act in ways that are driven by self-interest and personal gain. The ego, as a component of the lower self, is responsible for our sense of identity and individuality. It is the part of us that differentiates ourselves from others and seeks to assert its own desires and needs. While the ego can be a source of creativity and motivation, it can also lead to behaviors that are selfish or destructive. The lower self is often seen as a barrier to spiritual growth, as it focuses on the superficial aspects of existence and resists the more transformative aspects of the higher self. The interplay between the higher and lower selves creates a dynamic of conflict and tension within us. On one hand, we may strive to cultivate the virtues of the higher self, seeking to transcend the limitations of the ego and align with our higher purpose. On the other hand, we may find ourselves entangled in the desires and fears of the lower self, struggling with impulses that seem to contradict our spiritual aspirations. This internal struggle can manifest in various ways. We may experience guilt or frustration when we fail to live up to the ideals of the higher self, or we may feel conflicted when our desires and fears from the lower self lead us astray. The more we focus on this struggle, the more we reinforce the sense of separation and division within ourselves. The tension between the higher and lower selves can create a sense of inner conflict that is difficult to resolve. The dualistic view of the self, where the higher self is pitted against the lower self, can lead us into a trap. By framing our inner experience in terms of two opposing selves, we inadvertently strengthen the sense of division and conflict. The more we struggle to overcome the lower self and elevate the higher self, the more we perpetuate the illusion of separation. The process of personal growth becomes a battle. We are encouraged to fight against our lower impulses and desires, striving to make the higher self the dominant force in our lives. This approach can create a constant state of tension and unease as we attempt to reconcile conflicting aspects of ourselves. Rather than achieving a sense of harmony, we may find ourselves caught in a cycle of striving and failure. Zen teachings offer a different perspective on the concept of duality. In Zen, the notion of a higher and lower self is seen as a trick of the mind. The belief in the existence of two selves only serves to reinforce the illusion of separation. Zen practice emphasizes transcending this dualistic thinking and recognizing the unity of all experience. The idea of a higher self striving to control or overcome the lower self is itself a product of the lower self. If you believe in the higher self, you are still operating within the framework of dualistic thinking. The Zen approach invites us to go beyond this conceptual struggle and experience our true nature directly. By letting go of the idea of separate selves, we can begin to perceive the interconnectedness of all aspects of our being. In the quest for understanding and enlightenment, we often find ourselves grappling with the concept of duality, the idea that our inner world is divided into two distinct parts, the higher self and the lower self. This division suggests that our spiritual aspirations and primal desires are separate entities, each vying for dominance within us. But this dualistic perspective may be more of an illusion than a true reflection of our nature. The belief in the existence of two selves, one noble and spiritual, the other base and ego-driven, can create a profound sense of conflict and struggle. We may feel as though we are engaged in a constant battle between these opposing forces, striving to elevate the higher self while suppressing the lower self. However, this internal struggle can reinforce the illusion of separation and perpetuate the very conflict we seek to overcome. The higher self is often described as the aspect of our being that is connected to our spiritual essence. It embodies qualities such as wisdom, compassion, and a sense of purpose that transcends our immediate desires and fears. The higher self is seen as our true nature, representing our highest potential and our ultimate goal in life. It is the source of our most profound insights and the guiding force behind our spiritual journey. The concept of the higher self can also become a source of confusion and internal conflict. When we view the higher self as something separate from our everyday experience, we may fall into the trap of seeing it as an ideal to be achieved rather than an inherent aspect of our nature. This perspective can lead to a constant struggle to align our actions with the ideals of the higher self, creating a sense of separation between who we are and who we aspire to be. In contrast to the higher self, the lower self is associated with the ego and our primal instincts. It represents our personal desires, fears, and survival mechanisms. The lower self is concerned with immediate gratification, self-preservation, and the pursuit of pleasure. It operates from a place of separation and individuality, often leading us to act in ways that are driven by self-interest and personal gain. The ego, as a component of the lower self, is responsible for our sense of identity and individuality. It is the part of us that differentiates ourselves from others and seeks to assert its own needs and desires. While the ego can be a source of motivation and creativity, it can also lead to behaviors that are selfish or destructive. The lower self is often viewed as an obstacle to spiritual growth, as it focuses on the superficial aspects of existence and resists the more transformative aspects of the higher self. The internal conflict between the higher and lower selves can create a sense of struggle and division within us. We may find ourselves torn between the desires of the ego and the aspirations of the higher self, leading to feelings of guilt, frustration, and confusion. This struggle can perpetuate the illusion of separation, reinforcing the sense that we are divided and in conflict with ourselves. The more we focus on this struggle, the more we reinforce the illusion of duality. We may attempt to overcome the lower self by striving to align with the higher self, but this approach can create a constant state of tension and unease. Instead of achieving harmony, we may find ourselves trapped in a cycle of striving and failure. Zen teachings offer a different perspective on the concept of duality. In Zen, the notion of higher and lower selves is seen as a trick of the mind. The belief in the existence of separate selves only serves to reinforce the illusion of separation. Zen practice emphasizes transcending this dualistic thinking and recognizing the unity of all experience. The idea of a higher self striving to control or overcome the lower self is itself a product of the lower self. If you believe in the higher self, you are still operating within the framework of dualistic thinking. Zen invites us to go beyond this conceptual struggle and experience our true nature directly. By letting go of the idea of separate selves, we can begin to perceive the interconnectedness of all aspects of our being. To live with purpose and intent, it is crucial to grasp the concept of spontaneity. In the context of personal growth and self-realization, spontaneity is not merely about acting on impulse, but about responding to life with authenticity and fluidity. It involves embracing the natural flow of our being and allowing our actions to arise from a place of inner truth, rather than from premeditated plans or external expectations. Spontaneity reflects the essence of our true self, our inherent nature, that is connected to the present moment and aligned with the currents of life. When we are spontaneous, we are not constrained by the rigid structures of the ego or the conflicting demands of the higher and lower selves. Instead, we act from a place of genuine connection and clarity, free from the limitations of dualistic thinking. One of the key obstacles to spontaneity is the illusion of control. We often believe that we must meticulously plan and control every aspect of our lives to achieve our goals and maintain stability. This illusion of control can create a sense of rigidity and limitation, preventing us from fully embracing the spontaneity of our true self. The desire to control outcomes and manage our experiences can lead to a constant state of anxiety and stress. We may become preoccupied with the need to predict and manipulate every situation, believing that our sense of security depends on our ability to control the external world. However, this approach can limit our capacity to experience the richness of life and to respond to its unfolding with authenticity. Embracing spontaneity involves letting go of the need for control and allowing ourselves to respond naturally to the present moment. This freedom arises from a deep connection with our true self, which is inherently aligned with the flow of life. When we are in touch with this essence, we can act with clarity and authenticity, free from the constraints of ego-driven desires and fears. Spontaneity allows us to navigate life with greater ease and openness. Instead of being bound by rigid expectations and preconceived notions, we can respond to situations with a sense of fluidity and adaptability. This approach fosters a deeper connection with ourselves and with others, enabling us to engage with life in a more meaningful and fulfilling way. Mindfulness plays a crucial role in cultivating spontaneity. By practicing mindfulness, we can develop a heightened awareness of the present moment and a greater understanding of our true nature. This awareness allows us to let go of the need for control and to embrace the natural flow of our experiences. Mindfulness involves paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment or attachment. This practice helps us recognize the transient nature of our experiences and to see through the illusions of permanence and control. As we become more attuned to the present moment, we can respond to life with greater spontaneity and authenticity. Spontaneity and authenticity. Authenticity is a key aspect of spontaneity. When we are authentic, we act in accordance with our true nature, free from pretense or self-illusion. This authenticity arises from a deep connection with our essence, allowing us to respond to life's challenges and opportunities with clarity and integrity. Spontaneity and authenticity are closely intertwined. When we are spontaneous, we are more likely to act in ways that reflect our true self. This alignment with our essence enables us to engage with life in a more genuine and meaningful way, fostering deeper connections with ourselves and with others. Several barriers can hinder our ability to embrace spontaneity. These include the fear of uncertainty, the need for validation, and the tendency to adhere to rigid expectations. Overcoming these barriers involves recognizing and addressing the underlying beliefs and patterns that limit our capacity for spontaneity. The fear of uncertainty can prevent us from fully embracing spontaneity. We may feel anxious about the unknown and seek to control our experiences to mitigate this fear. Overcoming this fear involves developing a sense of trust in the natural flow of life and recognizing that uncertainty is an inherent part of our existence. The need for validation from others can also hinder spontaneity. We may be concerned with how our actions will be perceived and may alter our behavior to gain approval. Letting go of this need for external validation involves developing a stronger connection with our inner truth and acting in alignment with our true self. Adhering to rigid expectations and preconceived notions can limit our capacity for spontaneity. We may be bound by rules and standards that constrain our ability to respond naturally to the present moment. Overcoming these rigid expectations involves cultivating a more flexible and open approach to life, allowing us to embrace the flow of our experiences. Cultivating spontaneity involves developing practices that support a connection with our true self and a greater openness to the present moment. These practices can help us overcome the barriers to spontaneity and foster a more authentic and fulfilling way of living. Meditation is a powerful practice for developing spontaneity. Through meditation, we can cultivate awareness of our thoughts and emotions and gain insight into our true nature. This practice helps us let go of the need for control and embrace the flow of our experiences with greater ease. The concept of self is central to many philosophical and spiritual traditions, yet it remains one of the most elusive and complex aspects of human existence. The self is often seen as the core of our identity, the essence of who we are. However, this understanding of the self is often clouded by the illusions and misconceptions that shape our perceptions and experiences. In many traditions, there is a distinction between the higher self and the lower self. The higher self is often associated with spiritual wisdom, inner truth, and a deeper connection to the essence of our being. The lower self, on the other hand, is linked to ego, desires, and the transient aspects of our personality. This dichotomy suggests that the higher self must guide and manage the lower self, much like a rider controls a horse. This division can lead to a form of inner conflict and fragmentation, where we constantly wrestle with different aspects of ourselves. The illusion of the self is further complicated by the belief in a separate, individual entity that exists apart from the flow of experience. To truly understand and live with purpose, we must transcend this illusion and recognize the interconnectedness of our being with the dance of existence. One of the primary illusions that obstruct our understanding of the self is the sense of separation. We often perceive ourselves as isolated individuals, distinct from the world around us. This illusion of separation creates a false sense of individuality and autonomy, leading us to believe that we are separate from the flow of life and from others. This sense of separation is reinforced by the ego, which constructs an identity based on personal achievements, desires, and fears. The ego perpetuates the illusion of a separate self by focusing on distinctions and differences, rather than recognizing the fundamental unity of all existence. This separation can lead to a feeling of isolation and a constant search for meaning and fulfillment in external sources. To overcome the illusion of separation, we must embrace the concept of the dance of existence. This idea suggests that our lives are not separate and isolated events, but part of a larger, interconnected flow. The dance of existence represents the dynamic interplay of all elements of life, where each moment is a part of a greater whole. Embracing the dance of existence involves recognizing that we are not separate from the world, but intrinsically connected to it. Our actions, thoughts, and experiences are not isolated, but a part of the ongoing flow of life. By understanding this interconnectedness, we can move beyond the illusion of separation and align ourselves with the natural rhythm of existence. Awareness plays a crucial role in transcending the illusion of the self. By developing a heightened awareness of our thoughts, emotions, and experiences, we can begin to see through the illusions that shape our perception of reality. This awareness allows us to recognize the transient nature of our thoughts and feelings, and to connect with the essence of our being. Mindfulness practice is a powerful tool for cultivating awareness. Through mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment or attachment. This practice helps us see the impermanence of our experiences and the interconnectedness of all elements of life. By cultivating awareness, we can transcend the illusion of a separate self and align ourselves with the flow of existence. Another key aspect of the illusion of the self is the belief in control. We often think that we must manage and direct our lives to achieve our goals and maintain stability. This belief in control creates a sense of rigidity and limitation, preventing us from fully embracing the natural flow of life. The concept of ego is central to understanding our human experience, yet it is one of the most profound illusions that we grapple with. The ego, often perceived as our individual identity, is the construct of our personal narrative, built from our memories, desires, and fears. It is the voice inside our heads that constantly narrates our experiences, distinguishing us from others and shaping our sense of self. The ego is fundamentally an illusion, a mirage created by our minds to maintain a coherent sense of identity. It is a collection of thoughts, beliefs, and experiences that we mistakenly take to be our true selves. The ego thrives on separation and distinction, perpetuating the illusion that we are isolated entities existing apart from the world. This sense of separation is the source of much of our suffering and confusion, as it leads us to believe that we must defend and assert our individuality against external threats. We must examine how it operates within our consciousness. The ego is constantly engaged in a process of categorization and judgment, distinguishing between what is us and what is other. It builds its identity through the accumulation of experiences, achievements, and failures, creating a narrative that defines who we are. This narrative is often reinforced by our interactions with others and by societal expectations. The ego also plays a role in our emotional responses, shaping how we react to various situations. It fuels our desires and fears, driving us to seek validation, avoid discomfort, and assert our control over our circumstances. The ego's focus on separation and individuality can lead to a range of psychological issues, including anxiety, insecurity, and dissatisfaction. Liberating ourselves from the constraints of ego involves recognizing and transcending the illusion of separation. This process requires us to see through the constructs of the ego and to connect with a deeper sense of self that is not bound by the limitations of personal identity. One of the key aspects of liberation from ego is the realization that our true self is not the ego, but the essence that lies beyond it. This essence is not defined by our thoughts, emotions, or experiences, but by a deeper connection to the flow of existence. By recognizing the transient and illusory nature of the ego, we can begin to free ourselves from its limitations and embrace a more authentic sense of self. Several practices can aid in transcending the ego and connecting with our authentic self. These practices help us move beyond the illusion of separation and cultivate a sense of unity with the world. Meditation is a powerful tool for exploring and transcending the ego. Through meditation, we can observe our thoughts and emotions without attachment, gaining insight into the illusory nature of the ego. This practice helps us connect with a sense of awareness that is not bound by the constructs of the ego. Mindfulness involves being fully present in each moment, observing our experiences without judgment or attachment. By cultivating mindfulness, we can develop a heightened awareness of our thoughts and emotions and recognize the transient nature of the ego. This practice supports a deeper connection with our authentic self and the flow of existence. Self-inquiry involves questioning the nature of the self and exploring the sources of our identity. By examining our beliefs, desires, and fears, we can gain insight into the constructs of the ego and move beyond its limitations. Self-inquiry helps us uncover the essence of our being and connect with a more authentic sense of self. Compassion plays a crucial role in the process of ego liberation. By cultivating compassion for ourselves and others, we can dissolve the boundaries created by the ego and foster a sense of connection and unity. Practicing self-compassion involves treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, especially during times of difficulty or failure. By acknowledging our struggles and offering ourselves compassion, we can soften the rigidity of the ego and connect with a more authentic sense of self. Extending compassion to others helps us overcome the illusion of separation and recognize our shared humanity. By empathizing with the experiences and struggles of others, we can dissolve the boundaries created by the ego and foster a sense of unity and connection. The authentic self is the essence of our being that lies beyond the ego. It is not defined by our personal narrative, desires, or fears, but by a connection to the flow of existence. The authentic self is characterized by a sense of unity, openness, and fluidity, free from the constraints of ego-driven desires and fears. The authentic self recognizes our interconnectedness with the world and the cosmic dance of existence. It embraces the natural flow of life and aligns with the rhythm of the universe. This sense of unity fosters a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us, allowing us to navigate life with greater authenticity and grace. The authentic self is open and fluid, free from the rigidity and defensiveness of the ego. It allows us to respond spontaneously and authentically to the present moment, embracing the richness and diversity of our experiences. This openness fosters a deeper sense of fulfillment and satisfaction as we connect more fully with the flow of life. Living authentically involves aligning our actions, thoughts, and emotions with our sense of self. It requires us to move beyond the limitations of ego and to embrace a more genuine and connected way of being. Living authentically involves aligning our actions with our core values and beliefs. By staying true to our values, we can navigate life with greater integrity and purpose, fostering a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. Purpose is a concept that often eludes precise definition, yet it is a central element of the human experience. It encompasses the direction and meaning we ascribe to our lives, guiding our actions and shaping our experiences. To live with purpose is to engage in activities and decisions that resonate deeply with our core values and aspirations, aligning our actions with a sense of meaning and fulfillment. The quest for purpose often arises from a deep sense of existential inquiry. We ask ourselves what our lives are truly about, seeking answers that can provide a sense of direction and significance. This search is a fundamental aspect of the human condition, driving us to explore our desires, beliefs, and values. Purpose is about alignment. It involves bringing our actions, thoughts, and values into harmony with a deeper sense of meaning. When we are aligned with our purpose, we experience a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that transcends external achievements and accolades. Intent is the driving force behind purposeful action. It is the conscious decision to direct our energies and efforts toward achieving our goals and fulfilling our values. Intent shapes our approach to life, influencing how we navigate challenges and opportunities. While intent is focused and purposeful, desire is often more transient and driven by external influences. Intent involves a deliberate choice to pursue a particular course of action, whereas desire can be fleeting and subject to change based on external circumstances. Intent is rooted in a deeper understanding of our values and goals, guiding us toward actions that are consistent with our true self. Living with intent requires us to make deliberate choices and take purposeful actions. This involves setting clear goals, defining our values, and aligning our efforts with our overarching sense of purpose. Deliberate action allows us to channel our energies effectively and to make meaningful progress toward our objectives. Purpose and intent are intricately connected, each influencing and reinforcing the other. Our sense of purpose provides the direction and meaning for our actions, while our intent shapes how we pursue and achieve our goals. Purpose serves as the foundation for intent, providing a framework within which our actions take on meaning and significance. When we have a clear sense of purpose, our intent becomes more focused and aligned with our core values, guiding us toward actions that are consistent with our sense of meaning. Intent propels us forward, transforming our sense of purpose into tangible actions and outcomes. By setting clear intentions and making deliberate choices, we channel our energies toward achieving our goals and fulfilling our purpose. Intent shapes our approach to life, influencing how we navigate challenges and opportunities. To live with purpose and intent, we must embrace the present moment. The present is where our actions take place and where our sense of purpose is realized. By cultivating mindfulness and presence, we can align our actions with our deeper sense of meaning and navigate life with greater clarity and focus. Human experience is often marked by a sense of duality. We frequently perceive ourselves as divided entities, an idealized higher self and a flawed lower self, with a constant struggle between the two. This perceived split creates a dynamic of internal conflict and struggle as we attempt to reconcile our desires, intentions, and actions. This internal dichotomy often manifests as a conflict between what we believe to be our higher aspirations and our everyday behaviors that seem contrary to these ideals. The notion of a higher self, which represents our spiritual or idealized nature, is often juxtaposed against a lower self, seen as our ego or base desires. This duality suggests a constant battle between a refined, spiritual aspect of ourselves and a more primal, ego-driven aspect. The struggle to elevate the higher self over the lower self can lead to feelings of inadequacy and self-judgment. The belief in a split self can be misleading. It implies that there are two distinct entities within us, one virtuous and one flawed, leading to a perpetual state of inner conflict. This conceptual separation can create an endless cycle of striving and battling, obscuring the understanding that our true essence is unified and transcends these perceived divisions. Zen teachings offer a different perspective on the nature of self. Rather than endorsing a dualistic view, Zen philosophy emphasizes the unity and wholeness of being. According to Zen, the perceived split between a higher self and a lower self is an illusion, and true understanding involves recognizing the oneness of all aspects of our experience. The notion of a higher self and a lower self as separate entities. From a Zen perspective, these distinctions are mental constructs that reinforce the illusion of duality. Instead of seeing the self as a battleground between opposing forces, Zen encourages us to perceive our true nature as a unified whole. The goal is to transcend dualistic thinking and experience the unity of being. This involves cultivating non-dual awareness, where the distinction between self and other, higher and lower, dissolves. By experiencing this fundamental unity, we can move beyond the conflict of duality and embrace a more profound understanding of our nature. Mindfulness plays a crucial role in bridging the perceived divide between the higher and lower self. Through mindfulness, we become more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, allowing us to see beyond the surface-level conflicts and understand the underlying unity of our experience. Mindfulness involves paying attention to our present experience with openness and curiosity. By observing our thoughts, emotions, and actions without judgment, we gain insight into the nature of our inner conflicts and the illusion of duality. This heightened awareness allows us to see beyond the perceived split and recognize the interconnectedness of our experiences. Through mindfulness, we can begin to dissolve the perceived split between the higher and lower self. By observing our thoughts and feelings without identifying with them, we can transcend the illusion of duality and experience a more integrated sense of self. This process involves recognizing that our true nature is not divided but is a unified whole. To fully understand and embrace our true nature, we must acknowledge and integrate all aspects of our experience. This involves accepting both our so-called higher and lower aspects, recognizing that they are not separate but are part of a greater whole. Embracing the totality of experience requires accepting all aspects of ourselves, including those we might consider lower or flawed. Rather than striving to eliminate or suppress these aspects, we recognize them as integral parts of our being. This acceptance allows us to experience a more complete and authentic sense of self. Integration involves bringing together the diverse aspects of our experience into a cohesive whole. By acknowledging and integrating both our higher aspirations and our everyday behaviors, we create a more unified and harmonious sense of self. This process involves recognizing the interconnections between our thoughts, feelings, and actions and understanding them as part of a greater whole. Being present is essential to bridging the perceived divide and experiencing the unity of self. When we are fully present, we are less affected by internal conflicts and more connected to our true nature. The present moment is where our experience unfolds and where we can bridge the perceived divide between higher and lower self. By focusing on the here and now, we can move beyond internal conflicts and experience a more integrated sense of self. Being present allows us to engage fully with our experience and to connect with our true nature. Cultivating presence involves practices such as mindfulness, meditation, and conscious awareness. These practices help us stay grounded in the present moment and reduce the influence of internal conflicts and dualistic thinking. By regularly engaging in these practices, we can develop a deeper sense of connection to our true self and experience greater harmony and fulfillment. The belief in a separate thinker, a distinct entity that controls thoughts and experiences, reinforces the illusion of duality. In reality, the thinker is part of the stream of thoughts and experiences rather than a separate controlling entity. Thoughts arise and pass away like waves on the surface of a river. There is no separate thinker controlling these thoughts, rather, they are part of a continuous stream of experience. The illusion of a separate thinker arises from the way we perceive and attach to our thoughts, rather than recognizing them as transient phenomena. Recognizing the unity of thought and experience involves understanding that there is no separate thinker apart from the stream of thoughts. This realization helps dissolve the illusion of duality and allows us to experience a more integrated sense of self. By seeing thoughts as part of the flow of experience, we can move beyond the illusion of separation and embrace a more unified understanding of our nature. Spontaneity, often misunderstood, is not merely about impulsiveness or acting on a whim. It is a fundamental aspect of being that reflects our true nature, free from the constraints of rigid control and premeditated thought. When we speak of spontaneity in the context of personal growth and understanding, we refer to a natural, authentic way of responding to life that emerges from a deep connection with our true self. Spontaneity arises from our core being, reflecting an authentic response to the present moment. Unlike calculated or planned actions, spontaneous responses come from a place of natural alignment and presence. They are expressions of our true self, unfiltered by the layers of conditioning and external expectations that often shape our behaviors. When we act spontaneously, we experience a sense of freedom from the constraints of mental constructs and societal norms. This freedom allows us to respond to life with a sense of ease and fluidity, reflecting our true nature without the interference of internal conflicts or external pressures. Spontaneity, therefore, is not just a reaction, but a profound alignment with our authentic self. The illusion of control is a significant barrier to experiencing true spontaneity and freedom. We often believe that we must control our thoughts, emotions, and actions to achieve our desired outcomes. This belief in control creates a sense of separation between ourselves and our experience, leading to anxiety and internal conflict. The idea that we can control every aspect of our lives is a myth that perpetuates the illusion of separation. In reality, many aspects of our experience are beyond our direct control, and our attempts to exert control often lead to frustration and stress. This myth creates a false sense of agency, reinforcing the belief that we must constantly manage and direct our lives. The pursuit of control can have significant costs. It can lead to a rigid mindset where we become overly focused on outcomes and lose touch with the fluidity and spontaneity of our experience. This rigidity can create a sense of separation between ourselves and the natural flow of life, resulting in a diminished sense of freedom and authenticity. Cultivating spontaneity involves practices that help us reconnect with our authentic self and embrace the natural flow of life. These practices encourage us to move beyond rigid control and to respond to life with openness and ease. Mindfulness is a key practice in cultivating spontaneity. By staying present and aware of our thoughts, emotions, and sensations, we can become more attuned to our authentic responses. Mindfulness helps us recognize when we are operating from a place of control and allows us to shift towards a more spontaneous and genuine way of being. Spontaneity thrives in an environment of uncertainty. Embracing uncertainty means letting go of the need for predictability and control. By accepting the inherent unpredictability of life, we open ourselves to spontaneous experiences and responses. This acceptance allows us to navigate life with greater ease and authenticity.